This is your Spiritual Bite podcast with Bobby Ndungu. I am a missionary and a minister of the Word. Again, this Spiritual Bite podcast is a forum that is meant to open our minds to understand certain things that are necessary for our spiritual stability and progress in performing our Christian calling. In my previous podcast, I asked if you are a follower of Jesus, or are you a follower of a denomination or following a religious leader whom you admire? Let me state that religion can be very deceiving. It is like having a suit that you wear when there is an occasion or when need be, but you have to put it off after and continue with your normal life. Religious spirits are very deceiving, and we need to walk out of the religiousness within us and put on Christ, because Christ is a gown that we do not put off because an occasion has ended. It becomes our lifestyle. Jesus came so that he can change the way we live and the way we act. He works in our character to transform us. I would rather be a follower of Jesus than be constrained by any man-made rules, especially those that may limit my functioning as a child of God. Denominations and religious spirits have separated us and weakened our witness as Christians. We must destroy these walls that have divided us so that we can represent Christ as we ought to. In my last podcast, I also outlined the mission of Jesus as recorded in Luke 4:18 to 19. These are the mandate that Jesus gave to his followers, why he came, why he had to come. And he said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim the release of the captives, recovery of sight to the blind, to set free those who are oppressed, and to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord." At the end of the ministry of Jesus on earth, he spoke a lot about unfaithfulness in performing our stewardship. He knew that unfaithful stewards would come and wanted us to be warned. And we better be warned today that they are here with us. Unfaithful stewards come to derail us from following Jesus' mandate so that we can follow their own. And they have managed in swaying majority to stop doing the business that has eternal significance to things that are very temporal and those that only satisfy their greedy visions. In Matthew 24, we see a parable that Jesus spoke from verse 45. Who then is a faithful and sensible slave, whom his master put in charge of his household slaves to give them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that slave, whom his master finds so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But if that evil slave says in his heart, my master is not coming for a long time, and he begins to beat his fellow slaves, and he eats and drinks with those habitually drunk, then the master of the slave will come on a day that he does not expect, and at an hour that he does not know, and he will cut him in two and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Allow me to give an example of how I see the abuse of church today. In an example that is understandable to us today in the way people do business. I would see this like someone who has opened a big insurance company, and the mandate of the company is to give life insurance cover. Initially, the company is doing so well and records very high yields. But over time, the management changes hands over and over. We reach a point when the company is mismanaged and begins to decline. The company's core function, that of giving life cover, is ignored and all even rarely mentioned. Only a few people continue buying the life cover. Majority do not even trust those who are selling the insurances. The managers gradually change the business from life cover, and they make their own businesses of stock exchange and real estate. They change their roles from managers and they become brokers. The greatest disaster is that the new business modes don't benefit the big insurance company. It benefits the managers because they have become brokers and property owners. So they side register their companies to secure their proceeds. They also manage to change their terms of employment, and their positions are now lifetime. They stop measuring their standards with the company requirement, the code of conduct, and they go secular. They become good orators and philosophers. They are able to convince and attract audience that they are under the power of the life cover that they purport to represent. They convince them, we are under this power, we are under this mandate. They dress and live well from the proceeds of their clients, the genuine clients of life cover. Many of these brokers become money greedy to a point that they are friends with politicians and rich corrupt in the society. They buy titles for recognition and they become corrupt in every manner. When they make good money, they indulge in leisure and pleasure, which are contrary to the policy requirement in the code of conduct in the company of the life insurance that they initially were employed to represent. They have managed to turn a good company owned by God to become their own brokerage, to soothe their greedy mouth. What a disaster. In another of the parables that Jesus gave at the end of his ministry on earth, the parable of wicked vine growers, recorded in Matthew 21, verse 40, just what that one verse. Therefore, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to these vine growers? What will he do? There is judgment, brethren. Whether we want to twist or bend things and misrepresent Jesus, whether we mislead many, just know that there is judgment that is awaiting us. Unfortunately, this is the position we find ourselves. And maybe if this makes sense to you, you may need to forward this podcast to those whose this message represents. Jesus begins his church on a platform outlined in his vision that I have stated in Luke 4:18 to 19. And at the end of the life, he transfers that mandate to his disciples, all followers, and appoints them as managers and stewards of his mission. In Matthew 28:18 to 20, Jesus said these words, and Jesus came up and spoke to them, saying, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to follow all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of this age. Brethren, the authority that we mismanage belongs to Jesus. What Jesus is interested in doing is those things that if he remained over all generations, he would be doing in the midst of the people. Are you sure that Jesus would be busy buying properties and operating businesses? Are you sure that Jesus would be attracting crowds in an auditorium so that he can benefit from the offering? Are you sure that Jesus ever took an offering from the poor crowds who were following him? Once you can record a time that he took offerings for their own keep, so that you can copy that example and make money the central thing about a calling or ministry. Let us revisit our calling. Let us revisit our mandate. Let us revisit our salvation. This is your Spiritual Bite podcast